Smriti Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namah Sadashivasamarabham Shankaracharya अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 So looking at verse number 8. Kate kanta kaste putraha samsaraha ayam ativa vichitraha kasya tvam kaha kutaha ayataha tatvam chintaya tadiha bhrataha. So Shankaracharya says that one should ponder over the fundamental questions of how do I come to call someone as my wife? So from where did your son come? So in this sense, what is the truth behind relationships? Why we have to ask this question, we will look into it now. And before this verse, so in the 7th one, so Shankaracharya told us, pointed out how we are wasting our time on useless activities throughout our life, how we end up wasting a lot of time without really using it productively. So here, productive usage in the spiritual sense is only in terms of knowing the truth of oneself. Everything else is not that productive. It may be helpful for one's survival, but beyond that, it is not of much use because nothing sticks with us, nothing stays with us. Everything evaporates. All accomplishments evaporate. All achievements evaporate. Whatever we have gained, all that is only limited to this life. So to this lifetime in this body. And we have to leave behind everything and go. And even in this lifetime, the joy that we get through accomplishing something is only very, very short-lived. And then we continuously keep chasing something or the other. So he points out a few things that normally everyone spends time on at different stages of one's life. So balastavat kridasaktaha, tarunastavat tarunisaktaha, vriddhastavat chintasaktaha, parame brahmani kopinasaktaha. So in the youth, one spends all time in just playing. Tarunastavat tarunisaktaha. In youth, so childhood is spent in playing. Youth, you spend thinking and then trying to attract the opposite gender. Tarunastavat tarunisaktaha. It's not completely true. We don't spend all the time on this. But what he wants to point out here is a disproportionate amount of time is spent on something that is not very useful. So tarunastavat taruni saktaha, vriddhastavat chinta saktaha. So as one gets older, one spends time in worrying, worrying about the future or regretting about the past, but not living in the present, not really spending time on what is really necessary to do. And parame brahmani kopina saktaha. So one does not contemplate on the absolute reality. So here he now moves on to the truth of behind relationships. See, if I take one, let us take one relationship. So here he is pointing out the relationship of between a husband has towards one's wife. One is married. So you call someone your wife. And then once you accept someone as your wife, then the whole interaction with that person that is different from the interaction with any other woman. So it is true of someone you call your wife or someone you call your son, someone you call as your daughter. But what are they really? They are just human beings, either a man or a woman. So wife is a woman, and the physical makeup of your wife is no different from any other woman on this earth. And there are people like son and or husband or any other relationship with any other man you may have. So even though I qualify it by a certain name, using a certain name, but still, really speaking, they are just either a man or a woman. So that is the objective reality. So you look at that person, it is either a man or a woman. And the specific connection makes you call your connection with that person using different names. And once you enter into that relationship, then this person, the interaction with this person is totally different from the interaction with everyone else. So you form a certain attachment with that person. If it is a wife, then there is a certain attachment with a wife. Or you call someone as your son, so then you get attached to your son. You call some other person as a daughter, and you get attached to your daughter. So likewise with other people. So what is the truth of this attachment or love or the additional importance that you give to this person? What is the truth behind that? So Shankaracharya says one needs to really inquire into whether I should qualify or restrict my connection with certain people using the name of certain relationships, using a particular name. And that is purely my own creation, a subjective creation. Even though for transactional purposes, it is necessary to have that relationship. But it doesn't stop with transaction. It extends to the attachment towards the person, the bondage you have with that person. And then you allow yourself to be affected by whatever happens to that person. If something good happens to that person, so then you feel happy about it. If um, uh, something undesirable happens to that person, then you also include yourself and you share the unhappiness. And one also takes responsibility for whatever that person does. So here the question is it all worth it? So creating relationships and then suffering because of that, is it really helpful? Is it worth it? So that's what he says in this verse. Kate kanta kaste putraha samsaraha ayam ativa vichitraha. So who is my wife? What is the truth behind the relationship called husband-wife? And kaha te putraha. So who is your son? How did he come to become your son? Or how did you form this tight connection with that person? Okay, that person, you may have given birth to that person. But once the person comes out, you just take care of that person. So that is a parent's responsibility. But beyond that, that person is a separate individual, even though if it is one's own son or daughter. But because you have created a bondage with that person, then your life also gets intertwined with the life of that person. Like in India, like everywhere. So the problems of nepotism that we have. So favoritism towards one's own children or one's own family, which is many times unfair. But one justifies it, one justifies all such actions by giving a reality to the relationship in the first place. The relationship itself is an additional layer, additional superimposition that one has created over what is really objectively present. So just another individual, and then you create a layer over the already existing individual. So that justifies all the attachment that one has and all that one thinks one should do to that person. And then that becomes our world. So we restrict ourselves and we constrain ourselves in a very small circle. The other people are outside the framework. So it is not my relative, not someone who is close to me. And you divide it based on whether someone is close to you or someone is not close to you. If something happens to someone very close to you, then we feel it is legitimate for us to allow it to bother us. But if it is someone outside, because we don't have that connection, we don't really get bothered much. So how correct it is? So that is what Shankaracharya says we should inquire into. It doesn't mean that we should not care for the people who are close to us, but it means that one has to be objective towards the relationships. So slowly remove that subjective layer. That subjective layer causes samsara. That attachment causes samsara. That attachment causes bondage. And because of that bondage, we get caught in a whirlpool, in a vicious circle, vicious cycle. And even the relationships, the close relationships that we have, it is only carried over from the connection we had with the same jivas at an earlier lifetime. So they were in different body, and then they are in a different body now. But because we are connected, because we have a certain karmic connection with those people. So in this lifetime also, we are connected with them in some way. This is true of all close relationships. And earlier I was talking about settling accounts. If we don't settle accounts, then this connection will continue. And it will never end. It will continue for as long as we allow it to. But once we settle the account, so then it gives one a lot of freedom, inner freedom, gives freedom, and then let the relationship go. I mean, so one has objectivity towards the relationship, and one does not anymore, one is not anymore bound by those relationships. So that is a real freedom. So binding oneself to relation to people using certain names, that is bondage. That is what Shankaracharya wants to point out here. But we normally think, normal people think that relationships are good and relationships are forever, although we know that they are not forever. So relationships are necessary, but only for growing out of the bondage, not for getting stuck to it. So relationships are limited in their scope, are limited in their purpose. And if we get stuck in that bondage, then we forget the bigger picture. Because my whole life revolves around certain people. And I'm not able to get out of this small circle. So in other words, what is pointed out here is expand yourself. Like Swami Vivekananda said, expansion is life, contraction is death. So we restrict ourselves to only a very small group of people. Then that is very binding and that is very restrictive. That doesn't allow one to grow. But you expand yourself, then you really grow. Again, it is clear that for transactional purposes, we have a relationship. That will not go as long as we are alive in this body, at least in this lifetime. So that will not disappear, that will not vanish. But with this understanding of the bigger picture, then relationships become more meaningful and purposeful. Otherwise, it is just the bottom line is just attachment. So that only leads to disappointment, that only leads to regret, hurt. But the if it is raised to a higher level, then it gives freedom. That's what he points out here. So again, this verse is just to make us inquire into different aspects of our life. First, he made us inquire into what we do at various stages of our life and how much disproportionate amount of time we spend in accumulating wealth. And then now he is making us inquire into what is the truth and what is the role of relationships in one's life. What is the necessity of relationships in one's life? And then the relationships become meaningful. So this is real inquiry. That's why we do this text at the beginning. So to introduce a person into what this whole process of inquiry is, and not take anything for granted. So normal people take everything for granted. Okay, this I need to be attached to people who are close to me. Attachment we think is love. Love and attachment are confused. So when you're attached to a person, then it is binding. When you really love a person, then you give freedom, you give independence. So you don't have any expectation from that person. So that is very different. But normal people confuse between attachment and love. And when we inquire into the truth behind relationships, then that confusion slowly goes away. So I inquire into whether I'm really attached or I love that person. You can still continue to love that person, care for that person, but not be attached to that person. Because that person is an individual and has his or her own karma. So let that person deal with his or her own karma. You cannot deal with any other person's karma, even if that person is very closely related to you. Even if that person is your own mother or father or son or daughter, you cannot really do anything about their karma. It is their karma, their individual journey. Everyone's journey is individual. No one travels together. We think we travel together. People generally think it is a journey together, but it is always a separate journey. Even though we may be with certain people, but the journey is always separate. And we alone have to take responsibility for our journey. Someone very close to us does not do certain things, that is that person's problem, not my problem. So I have to do what I need to do. Sometimes it happens in family, one person is interested in the spiritual journey, another person is not interested. So some people don't pursue because they feel the other person will be left out. That doesn't make sense. If the other person is left out, then that person is losing out on a big opportunity. So you don't have to lose out just because your spouse is not interested. So for our own sake, we need to pursue this. That's why he says, Kate kanta kaste putraha samsaraha ayam ativa vichitraha. So this cycle of birth and death, this samsara, is extremely um, extremely wonderful. Wonderful, or it's extremely, it's very um, I can say, not very, not getting the right word. So it's not very straight. So Ativa Vichitraha is not straightforward. It is very tricky. Kasyatvam kaha kuta ayataha. Who are you? She says you also inquire about who are you. So you think you are a certain individual. When you ask someone who are you, so then the person can give a biodata and list out what all this person has done in that person's life. But then here Shankaracharya asks, is there all to it? So whatever you have done in the last few years, in this lifetime, is that all? I mean, that defines you, or are you something more than this? Because I am a jiva who has been traveling for quite a long time. And I don't even know what all I have done in my previous lifetimes. So some people are so attached to their alma mater, to their college, so the institution they went to. So even long after they have passed out of the institution, they still keep saying, I went to this institution. So that institution becomes a defining factor. And then you have certain other people who have gone to the same institution, and then you create a certain association. So, and revel in it. And always live in that world that you have created for yourself. Because you have passed out, you don't live there anymore. But still, you're in your mental space. You're always thinking about, and you are living out the nostalgia. So anytime you get any opportunity, then you don't miss out on that. So what defines me? I define myself in a very restricted way. That's what I'm trying to say. But the Shastra says that you are infinite. You are complete. You are all pervasive. That is what the scriptures declare. So you are not a limited individual. You are something far bigger. But then I say, no, Shastra does not really know what it's talking about. So how can I be something bigger? What I see, that alone I can work with. So I see myself as an individual, as someone who's limited in so many ways. But then Shankaracharya says, no, please inquire into that. Don't conclude like that. And your own accomplishments or what you have done in this lifetime, that does not even start defining you. So at a different level, the Shastra dismisses all of this as mithya. It is all false. So whatever you think you are is false. Or at the most, you can say it is incidental. It is not really true. It is very momentarily true, that's all. Kasyatvam kuta ayataha. Who do you belong to? Kuta ayataha. Where did you come from? Tatvam chintaya tadiha bhrataha. In this manner, ponder over the truth of one's existence. So spend time on contemplation on these lines, contemplating on these lines. In fact, this is the most productive job. Other things should only play a supportive role. Whatever anyone else does, other than contemplating, should only support one's contemplation in this manner. So let that not become primary. Let your relative pursuits not become primary and contemplation becomes secondary. So contemplation as inquiry is primary and everything else is secondary. So that is the idea that is taught out here. Then we'll move to the next verse number 9. Satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivanmuktihi satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve nirmohatvam निर्मोहत्वे निश्चलतत्वं निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्तिः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. So here in this verse, Shankaracharya points out certain useful associations. Earlier verse, he dismissed all relationships as unnecessary. So as binding. But here he says there is one relationship that is helpful. What is that? It is called satsanga. So satsanga means satam sangaha satsangaha. Association with wise people. So that is satsanga. Sangha means association. And sat represents satam. So with wise people. So here you can also include people who have a similar wavelength. Satsangatve nissangatvam. So when you associate with such people, then slowly your detachment also increases. Nissangatva. Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, so you have to really break this samsara with the sword of detachment. Asanga shastrena. So with the sword of detachment, there also sangha, the word sangha is there. So asanga shastrena dridhena chitva. So this cycle of birth and death should be cut off decisively with the sword of detachment, without room for reappearing again. And that you get there by satsanga, especially the beginning stages. It is always helpful to associate with other like-minded people. So here we are having an online satsang. Previously, this online, this format was not there. So only physical satsang was possible. So that is why even now, because we've still not become completely virtual, we are also real people. So because we've not become completely virtual, some people also feel the need for this in-person connection, meeting. So, but because we are all spread out in so many different countries also, so not just cities, so many different countries. So, this is the best alternative we can have. So, but here he points out that this satsanga is very, very essential, at least in the beginning stages, because it motivates us and then keeps us on track. And we also get inspired by other people. So, and also in this online satsanga, so it is just like a monologue mostly. Only I'm talking. But in a satsanga group, then people interact with each other. Then you get some variety at least. You get some variety, and then you can share notes with other people. And then at least satisfy yourself that there are other crazy people like me. So there are other people who are also having similar interests. That also helps, because sometimes you feel, am I the only person who is thinking on these lines? Because the whole world seems to be running on in a completely different direction. So why should I be doing this? But when you meet some like-minded people, so then that gives you some solace, so some confidence and some inspiration also. And then you are walking on the same path. So you can get help also from other people. See, because in a spiritual life, in the beginning at least, you're not sure as to what you should do. Because you cannot sit, close your eyes, and then keep meditating all the time. So you need to talk to people. So this is satsanga is very, very helpful distraction. So it is a distraction definitely, but it is a very, very helpful distraction. It is a useful distraction. So that's what he says, satsangatve nissangatvam. So with satsanga, you get detachment. Your detachment increases, or the force of attachment weakens. So then you talk to other people, and then you also think about what this attachment is really giving you. Nissangatve nirmohatvam. So when there is detachment, then there is nirmohatvam. So there is clarity. There is freedom from confusion. Especially in when you are studying spirituality series, like you're studying the Bhagavad Gita systematically in a structured way. Sometimes there are doubts that you get, and you may not want to ask the teacher all the time. So you can talk to other people and discuss about it, even though that has its limitations. Sometimes when you discuss, it only leads to more confusion. Because when you are on this path for a length of time, a lot of doubts get normally clarified, cleared. So you don't, but in the beginning at least, you want someone to talk to because of our old habits, because of the way we have lived our life. We have always wanted company. We have always wanted association. So Shankaracharya says, at least have, okay, if you are desperate for some association, then have satsanga. So that will at least help you in some way. All other associations are only binding in nature. So nissangatve nirmohatvam. So and some doubts can get clarified. So and ignorance slowly gets removed. Nirmohatvam. Nissangatve nirmohatvam. Nirmohatve nischalatatvam. So when there is more clarity, nirmohatve, then nischalatatvam, your mind is not restless. You are not restless. You are at peace with yourself. In fact, that is a very big outcome of the spiritual pursuit. If you really do it properly, you are at peace with what you are doing, and what you have to do. Otherwise, there is confusion, there is restlessness. You're not clear whether what you're doing is right. A lot of times, especially when people have a midlife crisis. So then you start asking the question, what am I really doing with my life? Is this all worth it? So before one becomes spiritual, so this is the entry point. So then you start questioning, is it all worth? Is the rat race really worth it? And then when you get clarity, then you are at peace with yourself, and you know that you are on the right track. So that is Nischala Tattva. And here at a later stage, Nischala Tattvam can also mean total relaxation. Then at that point, when someone asks you, is this all really worth it? Then you will say nothing else is worth it. Only this is worth the effort. So that kind of confidence, that confidence level one attains, one gets. Because you see everyone, and then you feel, why are they wasting their time on all these meaningless activities? So that's why Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. So ya nisha sarva bhutanam. What is like deep sleep? What is like night for normal people? Tasyam jagarti sanyami. So there a wise person remains awake. What normal people don't give importance to, don't focus on. A wise man focuses on that, gives importance to that. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sahanisha pashyato mune. So what normal people are recklessly going after, jagrati, are awake to, that a wise man understands that it is all pointless. It is all worthless. It's all a waste of time. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune. So normal people are not awake to the real purpose of one's existence. And what normal people are focusing on that a wise man understands it is a waste of time. Esyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mane. So Lord Krishna says at the end of the second chapter. So here he says, Nirmohatve nischala tattvam. So when one gets that kind of clarity, then all restlessness goes away. One relaxes and is at peace with whatever one is doing. In fact, that is what we really want to, that is where we all want to get. To be exactly clear about why I'm here, what I should do, and then am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And then finally he says, Nischala Tattve Jivan Mukti. So when one is relaxed, Nischala Tattve, that real relaxation comes only in assimilating that you are that absolute consciousness, all-pervading consciousness, that Nischala Tattvam. So Nischala Tattvam, first it is relaxation, but then that true relaxation comes only with understanding. Understanding that I am Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So today morning also we saw in the Gita, Shanti. So real Shanti is only when one understands the truth of oneself. So here Nischala Tattvam also is real Shanti that one has obtained by cognitively understanding the absolute, the truth of oneself. So with that cognitive understanding comes Jivan Mukti. So comes total freedom. Freedom while being alive. Mukti, liberation while alive, living. So Hinduism is the only religion, if we may call it so. So where we talk about Jivan Mukti. And that too only in Advaita. So no other group of people, they talk about Jivan Mukti. Because generally Mukti means going somewhere after death, going to some place. Like going to Vaikuntha or going to Kailasa. So that is what is liberation according to most people. So their own destination they have to go. But only in Advaita we say that it is possible for you to be liberated while you are alive. You don't need to die. So for all other sects, the first qualification for getting liberated is you have to die. And then if you die, you can't come back and question them also. So I didn't get liberated. Why did you fool me? Why did you cheat me while I was alive? So what to do? Better luck next time. That's what we can say. So why did you get cheated? So someone tells you, you just take it at face value. So why didn't you not really question? So whether what will happen if I go somewhere? So why should I not get liberated here? Why should I go somewhere else to get liberated? So they have very flowery language. Everyone has very flowery language for what happens after death. So when you use flowery language, then you are impressed and so you get carried away. But in Advaita alone, we say Jivan Mukti is by understanding. And understanding takes place only when you are alive. If understanding cannot take place when you're alive, then it won't take place after death also. And even the Kathopanishad says this is the best place. The earth is the best place for getting this understanding. So, not going to some other loka. In fact, they are not very conducive for spiritual knowledge. You may go and enjoy some pleasures there, but not conducive for spiritual knowledge. And no other religion also talks about Jivan Mukti. Christianity talks about going to heaven. And then someone will decide where he will go to eternal heaven or eternal hell. And the liberation of Islam, we don't even need to talk about it. So they have a completely different version. So anyway, so here Shankaracharya says, Nischala Tattve Jivan Mukti. So when there is that cognitive understanding, then you are liberated while you are alive. You don't have to wait. Because you know everything else is mithya. Everything outside is an appearance. It has no more reality than just being an appearance. So that much reality. And by the time your mind has absorbed it, registered it, then the object has changed forever. So that is how mithya is. Mithya is always continuously changing. And truth is a constant, it doesn't change. In fact, that's what gives reality to mithya. And then we'll move to the next verse. So, verse number 10. Vayasi gate ka kama vikaraha शुष्के नीरे का सारः क्षीणे तत् वित्ते कः परिवारः ज्ञाते तत्त्वेकः संसारः वयसि गते कः कामविकारः शुष्के नीरे का सारः क्षीणे वित्ते कः परिवारः ज्ञाते तत्त्वेकः संसारः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. So vayasi gate kaha kama vikaraha. So here he is trying to point out, if someone tries to justify that happiness is only by fulfilling desires, by satisfying one's aspirations or goals, then is it really true? Is it really a valid argument? So first he asks, Vayasi gate kaha kama vikaraha. So when one is young, then the desire, so the biological urge is there, and even other desires. So they are stronger when one is younger. When one grows old, slowly the desires weaken, reduce. Because when you are young, then you want to travel and you want to go to different places. And sometimes when people grow old also, they still don't grow up. But that's a different problem. But when you are young, then it is stronger. So you want to do a lot of things. So utilize maximum utilization of your youth. So here he asks, Vayasi gate kaha kama vikaraha. So what happens here? Kama can be taken primarily as that physical urge for a relationship with the opposite gender. So when one becomes older, then that physical urge reduces naturally. It's not the same. See, we can give a medical explanation for it. Either the testosterone comes down or the female hormones, the hormonal effects are lesser when one becomes older. So, shushke nire kaha kasaraha. So, when there is no water, there was water before, and it was called a lake. When there is no water, then you can't call it a lake, then it becomes a ground. So, shushke nire kaha kasaraha. Nyate tatve kshine vitte kaf parivara. So, he doesn't give it up. So, when you lose wealth, then where is family? So, he's very clear that your family is connected to you only for your money, not for anything else. So, whether we are clear or not, Shankaracharya is very clear. So, people give you importance only for what you give them. It's purely a selfish connection. So, kshine vitte kaf parivaraha, jnate tatve kas samsara. So, when you have known, cognitively understood, then where is samsara? So, that's what the 4 questions he asks in this verse. We will stop here and take. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnama Purnameva Sishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om